We'll call this into session here. Start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for roll call, let the record reflect that all members are present, and we can start the truth and taxation. All right, public hearing. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, board. My name is Scott Ryan. Thank you for having me tonight. Michelle, you running that show?
I am.
There. All right, perfect. That's still too far away from me, so I gotta use my notes here. All right, so we're all here for the truth and taxation meeting tonight. You can go ahead and scroll to the next page. I'm gonna quickly go through some of the rules and requirements that we need to adhere to. So the law requires a mailed notice to each property owner in the county which describes the tax levies proposed by the city, county, and school district, and what percent increase, decrease such as levy would mean in dollars. I'm just reading these for those that maybe can't see that. So school districts are required to hold a single meeting in which the public is allowed to speak and the budget and levy is discussed. The meeting may be part of a regular scheduled meeting, but must occur after 6 p.m. The meeting date and location must be provided at the same time or prior to certifying the proposed property tax levy. The meeting date must be held between November 25th and December 27th. So we're all here tonight as part of the school district's public meeting process and to discuss that tonight. Just kidding. All right, so additional requirements on the next page. So we need to discuss the property tax levy for taxes payable in 2024 and provide and discuss information on the current budget 23-24. And lastly, public must be given a reasonable amount of time to comment on the proposed property tax levy and budget and ask questions. Next slide, please. So points to remember. So revenue formulas are set by the state legislature except for the voter approved referendums. Local levy and state aid mix are set by the state legislature, and an increase in local taxes does not necessarily mean an increase in revenues for the school district. So just a quick little snippet on that, such as we talked about community ed. I talked with Amy, our community ed director today. They're changing some of the formulas such that more is coming from the state and less is coming from local levies for, say, community ed. And we'll see that here in just a little bit. So the state makes changes to the formulas and what the state will pay via aid versus local property payers. So this next slide is always one of my favorites, just because it does kind of give an idea of what the school is working on, what the business office administration are all working on. So at any given point, you can see that we're working through 3 different years, whether we're working on last year's audit or we're working on this year's school year. You know, there's a lot of different things that happen. And then the gold area is the levy. So that's kind of where we're at, where we're talking about where we're going to be taxing for the levy for not only into the future for FY25, for FY27. So any questions on that slide? None, hearing none. So we can go to the next one, please. All right, you can go ahead and, so we're talked about, this is the portion we're going to talk about the budgeting and the state of affairs after we ended FY23. Okay, so just a quick overview of the different funds. So Royalton, we have 5 different funds, which is our general fund. This is the revenue based on student enrollment. The local referendum levy is part of the general fund, provides for classroom instruction, instructional supplies, equipment, other educational activities. Special education, state and federal mandated programs, extracurricular activities, people transportation, facilities, operation, maintenance, capital expenditures, improvements, health, safety, code compliance. So can everybody back there see that okay? Okay. All right. Well, you probably can't just looking at me, but all right. So next slide, we're going to continue going through the funds. So fund 2 is our food service, obviously for school breakfast and lunch programs. Community service is our fund 4. So that is for, after school activities, before school activities. So school readiness, adult basic education. So fund 6 is construction, which we do not have here currently, but we do have fund 7 that is going off to pay off those bonds down at the bottom that we use for referendum during those years. So for those who can't see, it's basically 19 million for the 2015 bonds and 1.3 million for the 2016 bonds. So that is fund 7, which goes to paying off your debt service. Next slide, please. All right, so 22-23 overview of the revenues. So the budget is in your middle column, and where we ended actually with the audit is on your left column to shows a difference. So you can see that we were pretty conservative with our budget. And we budgeted for less than what we actually got. Now, some of that may just be differ from, food service, for instance, more participation with food service. Community ed, adding in programs, construction fund, you can see a 0. And then our debt service, you can see that's what goes off to paying off your bonds, like I talked about before. So general fund could be certainly affected by, say, student activity accounts, bringing in some additional fundraising dollars, or if we have different donations and things like that. Higher interest rates would certainly fall in there as well. All right, next slide, please. So you can see here, where do the school revenues come from? You can see the majority of that revenue that we get to operate our schools in that big purple section there, that is the state funding. So as you can tell, this chart, we are very dependent on our enrollment because our enrollment is what drives the state aid formula. Next slide, please. All right, we took a look at revenues. Let's take a look at expenditures. So again, the budget's in the middle, the actuals on the left-hand side. You can see we're basically 1.1 million under budget. Primarily, that's coming from some planned spend down from some capital expenditures that we had. We did have a rather large restricted fund balance we used to put into the classroom with curriculum and different things throughout the classrooms. So to do some updating there. Food service at 721, budget 568, and then construction fund obviously nil, and then debt service spot on. So next slide, please. And I should mention, can you just go back one there? So the middle column, the 23-24 for both the revenues and the expenditures, those will be changed during the revision process that we typically do in February, March timeframe. We start in January, but we'll bring it to the board in February, March timeframe. Thank you, Michelle. All right, so how are the general fund dollars being spent? So here's the slide of all the different expenditures and how they've been spent throughout FY23. So if you added up all the regular instruction, the vocational, special education, instructional pupil support services, that equates to 73.9% of what we spent our expenditures on. That all goes to instruction for our students. Make sense on that? Next slide, please. All right, general fund expenditure budget. So what do our expenditures pay for? So you can see there that 54.7 plus the 15, so 69.7% of expenditures are on staffing. So it's very important that Dr. Weirkamp and the business office, everybody keep a close eye on enrollment with staff ratios. And that's things that we're always looking forward to, and look 5 years out, trying to plan for that too. So it is one of your biggest expenses between the red and the blue there. It's taking up most of your pie. Next slide. So we're going to look at where we ended FY23. So in our unassigned, which is basically your savings account for those at home, our unassigned is 1.8 million. Our assigned is 270,000, which that goes towards like reading specialists, roofing repairs, different things that the school can set aside funding for. Safe schools, operating capital, that's, I alluded to that earlier, where when we were looking at our unassigned or our restricted account for operating capital, there was a good chunk of money sitting there. So we came to the board and we talked about spending that down to updating a lot of our classrooms. So that was a planned spend down on that. And then student activities, that's one thing that we oversee, but we don't have a lot of control over that, because that's where the students and their advisors go out and they do fundraisers. And so they can tell the finance guy like me, like, I want a shooting machine for the basketball court. And I say, no, it costs too much. They say, okay, well, I don't like you, I'm gonna go buy it anyway. So they can do that with their assigned funds. So long-term facility maintenance, and then the non-spendable would be like the prepaids. So things that we prepay at the end of FY23 for FY24. So next slide, please. All right, so everything we've talked about before is discussed where our audit was, where we were, and how we ended FY23. What we'll be looking at and talking about now is the FY 24 levy. This is taxable in 23 and payable in 24. Next slide, please. All right, so authority for school levy. A school district tax levy must be either set by state formula as derived by the state or voter approved for things like referendums, like building or operating referendums, which we are not doing. So next slide, please. All right, so what makes up these changes? So factors impacting the tax change. Changes in sales ratio impacting ANTC, which is short for adjusted net tax capacity. Change in tax capacity rate structure, laws mandating code compliance, health, safety, and buildings, issues determined by district voters, voter approved building bonds, and referendums, as I mentioned before. Next slide, please. So additional factors. So I think this top one is a big one for Royalton, is the inflationary pressure of real estate market. I remember coming here last night, I was talking to a gentleman in the crowd too prior. Last year we stayed relatively flat, like 2-3%, but across the United States, across Minnesota, I was seeing a lot of increases in the levies. But here it kind of stayed relatively flat. And so I would ask the gentleman if we've seen a big uptick in your market rates here in Royalton, and a lot of nodding heads. The consensus is, yeah, it's, it's inflationary, but yet, can we still sell our houses for that amount? Obviously, property improvements, not previously taxed. I can't make this up. I did have somebody call me one time and say, why are my taxes going up so much? And then I asked them, was talking to them for quite a while, and they told me they built a massive shed and did some other things on the property. So therefore, it was reassessed and their taxes went up. Change in individual assessed market value, just kind of discuss that. Possible change in property classification, such as homestead to rental. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so Royalton School District, how will your 2024 taxes be spent? So 32.26% is spent on general fund, and then 1.38 on community and 66.36 on debt service. So you can see that the majority of the levy will be spent on paying off the past debt. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so this is our 23 paid 24 levy. Our general fund 22-23 is 746,000, and the 23 paid 24 is 830,000, increase of 84,000. The community service is 46, going down to 35. I alluded to that earlier. I was talking about how that changed from state to local. They're putting more on the state, and the local is going down. And then debt reception, so debt redemption, excuse me. So you can see the majority of that is going towards the past debt payments. Total increase from the prior year actual 8.95%. This doesn't mean that your own property taxes are going up 8.95% too. I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Does it mean that when you average it out with everybody, that's what it is?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. And also, so the next slide, please, Michelle. So what are the main variables that cause property taxes increases? So as we discussed, I feel like this is a little bit, I always feel like this part is repeating, but I think it's worth it. So changes in market values, classification or class rates, change in property tax credits, example, change in homestead benefit from a credit to exclusion, voter approved referendums, increase or decrease in levy amounts caused by change in state funding formulas, such as there's like an inflationary bond that the school would go out for, like an operating referendum with an inflationary factor in there. Obviously, inflation is skyrocketed, so therefore, the bond would increase with that as well. All right, so next slide. Continued. So the value of property may increase or decrease. The value of other properties may increase or decrease and change the share that your property is of the total tax base, as member Hackett just mentioned, whether property changed or not. So, and I always like to point out here too, that the school district is one of three things that make up or affect your property taxes. So one is the county, two is the city and township, and then three is the school. So, and I just like to mention too, that the school is the only one of those three that need to come to a public setting like this and then ask for approval of that, where a city can certainly go and do whatever they need to do, and then your property taxes increase because of it. You can go and yell at your your centers if you want. So feel free. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so the resolution, whereas pursuant to Minnesota statute, the school board of Royalton, school district Royalton, Minnesota is authorized to make the following proposed tax levies for general purpose. So as on that previous slide, our maintenance or our general fund and community ed and debt service. And the total proposed tax levy of 2.5 million. And so be it resolved by the school board of Royalton, school district Royalton, Minnesota, that the levy to be levied in 2023 be collected in 24 is set at 2.5758188.11 million. The clerk proposed to levy County Auditor Morrison County, Minnesota. So that is the presentation. Later in the board meeting tonight, then we'll talk about that'll become an agenda item for you guys, action item, excuse me. So any questions on the presentation, levy, and whatnot?
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
Way back up in the beginning of the slide, you had 3 points. And point 3 was that the public must be given reasonable time to comment. What is that time frame?
But typically it's 5, what is it, 3 to 5 minutes?
Yep, it's during the meeting.
It's during the meeting
Yep.
night. Okay, that's what I just want to clarify.
How does this number compare to the original proposal that you brought forth? Remember when you proposed the initial number and then it could go up or down, or
Yeah.
you asked for the max,
Yeah,
and then we could adjust it if we needed to.
Yeah, so you levy the max, and the things that would change on the levy certification process is your enrollment between now and then. Any funding formulas would have changed between now and then, but as far as like in a dollar amount, it's literally changed like 20 times since that time, because what he's talking about, and for everybody, just so you know, so in September, you always levy the max. Okay, that needs to be turned into the state by September 30th, but because your enrollment is not always set by then and it's fluctuating a lot in the beginning, because a lot of kids maybe didn't disenroll from here or enrolled and haven't disenrolled from their previous district. So the ADMs changed quite a bit. Q comp would also affect that, but we're not a Q comp district here. So if we were, and you levy the max, that would be put in. And then I would just take that out, put it at 0, because we don't levy for that. Hopefully that answered your question, but that's why we usually do the max. And
Right, I was wondering how the numbers compare. So when we did the max, what was that number? Do we know what that number was?
I can certainly pull it up and look at it. But it's
So they can't go over that, right?
correct,
They can only drop from there.
correct. Well, the only way it would go up is if we increased our ADMs.
Right.
But it's nothing from what we would have done as a school district. The only reason why it would go up would be a good thing for us, because it'd be mean higher enrollment.
Right. I'm just saying, if we didn't need all that money, did it go down? I guess is my main question. You know,
Right.
like if I go to the bank and ask for a loan, they're gonna know where I'm spending all that money.
Right.
So that's what I'm asking, if it went down or if it stayed the same. Are we still asking for the max? Or are we asking for less because we ran the numbers and realized we didn't need all that money?
Right.
That's the question.
Yeah, no, there's nothing that would have changed in there. There's nothing that would have changed in there from the max to this, except for the enrollment. That's it. So if we went down enrollment, which I think we did, starting from September, then we would have gone down on our levy. Like I said, that changes. I mean, I don't know if you get the emails. I certainly do. During that, so between September and even up until like, I'd say mid-November, I'm getting email almost every single day saying, hey, new tax levy documents out there. So, I mean, I can go back and I can look at what that was, but if our enrollment declined, then so did our levy. And that's why I do feel like a lot of the increase is due to the real estate market and going up. A lot of it is from that, and obviously our bond payment. So other than that, I mean, $84,000 for the size of town of Royalton, the way it is, I feel like that it could be all of it. And it could certainly go back down next year. Like I think last year, I think we decreased like by 0.9.
And I have one more question on the debt redemption.
Mhm.
It went up. So does that mean we took out more loans? Or what does that mean?
No, it's just, so when we do the bond, when you guys go out for bond referendum, they give you a list of the years and the payments that are to be made. So we certainly follow that. Now, that can be affected by if people aren't paying their taxes, that or, because you always borrow for 105%. That 5% is to protect this, basically protect the county or you guys that if people aren't paying their taxes in a timely manner, within so many years, you'll have a debt correction, and then that money will be put back towards your loan and be taken off. So that has a way of making its way out, but through the audit, I don't see a lot of what they call I'm losing my mind, or your deferred taxes, because people are all paying their taxes pretty much.
I just seen an increase of about 140,000
Yeah.
on the debt, that's why it was.
Yeah, that comes straight from when the bonds were passed, when the referendum was passed. They give a payment schedule and we did that.
I just thought it would go down, not up, because we'd be paying on it all year,
Right.
but it went up instead of down. But
Yeah. We look at last year too, it went up as well.
So if it keeps going up, are we ever gonna have it paid off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one's almost paid off. I think it was, David messed up my slides, but
2027, I think, right?
yeah. And then you also have another one that's worth like 1.5 million. It's on that slide. If you scroll up on the show, it's on that slide when the two are there, 1.5, 1.8. It's on the bottom, kind of
Yeah.
fine print.
The good thing about those bonds is the interest rates are low on them,
1.3.
so.
1.3, so when that gets paid off, then they'll continue to go down and then we'll just have the 2015.
18 million.
Yeah,
Said that 2015 one goes to what, 2027? No, 2030 and 2030.
yeah. I'll jump on my computer here and make sure.
I know, that was a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember that.
Good. I was just wondering if I heard you correctly.
Well,
Because we talked about our LTFM increasing that. Because we're gonna need to-
That's 2030, 2031, 2032. Yeah, because there's the LTFM bond, and that will be paid off. And then you guys can, as a board, you guys have now with the new authority, you guys can renew one time. But it would be the hope and the goal not
That's for
to.
operating referendums.
Right, well, I'm sorry, yes, you're right.
That they can't.
Yeah,
but
for operating reference.
We don't
it
have
would
that.
it would be wise as a board to watch, the next few years as the interest rates move. It might be a good idea to think about bonding at a lower interest rate than, can
They give
you
a,
imagine if you would
Yeah,
have to do something right now with something and have to bond right now and the interest rate would be 8%?
right.
Pretty awful.
Yeah, so that's one thing that our financial advisors, through Ehlers, they'll email us probably once a month telling us whether it's good or not to
refinance.
to refinance the bonds. And obviously, it's not gonna be a good time to refinance those anytime, especially when you guys got, 2015, 2016.
Yeah,
Unless something drastic happens and the interest rates dramatically fall, we probably won't be refinancing those bonds. Now, we certainly, you guys could obviously just like if you guys chose to do a referendum in the future and combine those with others, but
just thinking.
I'd like to keep those where they are, because like you said, the interest rates are pretty low.
You talked about an operational levy, so I know we don't have one. How many, what's the percentage of schools that do versus don't have operational levy?
Most of them,
Yeah.
I think it's about 30% don't.
Yeah, I would say certainly majority of schools have one or they're seeking one, because what I've found in a lot of districts, I'm calling it a COVID cliff. Where we in Royalton did a much better job of, utilizing and not supplanting with those CARES dollars, if you will, the PESER gear, some people may refer to them as. But a lot of districts this year throughout Minnesota, they went way down in their fund balance because of that. And then therefore they're getting an operating referendum if they didn't have one already. The only problem is, you're basically 2 years behind. So if you did one now, then it doesn't really necessarily take effect. You don't see that revenue until not the next fiscal year, but the one after. So To answer your question, do I know exactly how many? No, but I would certainly guess that's probably 70% of them have one. Yeah, obviously try to stay away from that as long as you possibly can, but it's also, Dr. Werkamp and I talked about this a lot today, where we're talking about, the education system trying to, how do you get enough revenue into a district to pay everybody what you want them to pay? Because you're kind of almost running a multi-million-dollar business on a $10 budget, so hopefully someday people a lot smarter than me will figure it out and be able to pay all the staff that work in schools what they should. Because you have less and less people going to school for it, but it's a great career. Good question. Good questions too, everybody. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. What do you think, Mr. Lee?
So there will be a chance to talk about this when we open our next meeting during the public comment for that. So for the truth and taxation, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Director Bowman,
I'll second.
second by Director Trout. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right, so truth and taxation is over. And we'll start the next meeting starts at 6:35. Call the regular school board meeting to order. Roll call, all members are present, and we did the pledge of truth and taxation meeting just before this. So I'll start with board chair comments. So two things, organizational meeting, I had them print off everything that we did last time, just to look it over so we can talk about, well, not talk about it, but think about committees and different things like that before the next meeting as we go talk through all that stuff. So that's there for that. Second thing that I want to talk about was policy 210. So our policy committee hasn't met yet, but I've gotten a couple emails about it, so I just wanted to clarify a couple things because some of them were right and some of them weren't right there. So the previous state statute said we could spend up to, or the district, somebody could make up to $8,000 to be on the school board. And our school board policy, when that happened, our school board changed it to 0. So school board can make 0, or member can make 0. And the legislature just changed it to member could make up to 20,000 working for the school right now. So our policy says 0, but we still get paid, so that we're not following our policy in that for part of that. But so we haven't met yet, but we will in January as we talk about that. The second thing is we're asking our lawyer about it to see if we can change that, or if, because that's set in state statute, that we have to abide by that and we can't change it. So that's going to inform some of the stuff as we bring it to the policy committee and then bring it to us. So that's one of the questions we asked, so that we haven't gotten anything back on yet. But those are my 2 comments for tonight. So I will take an approval of the agenda. By Director Bowman.
I'll second it.
By Director Hackett. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, motion carries. Appreciation, recognition, and presentations.
Chair Hosted, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp, Joel Swenson, high school principal. I am here tonight to recognize our 3 fall students of the month. We have 3 very good ones here tonight. When you talk about involvement, and they're 3 very different students, and we have actors and athletes and civically minded students who are heavily involved in our programs. They're leaders amongst their classmates, peers, trustworthy, reliable individuals, very good human beings. Is my favorite part if I'm describing the 3 tonight. They have really done very well for themselves at Royalton High School and are very deserving of this recognition. They will also be up for a Student of the Year scholarship at the end of the year. And we will award that in May, right before graduation. So September Student of the Month, Nate Moga. The November Student of the Month, Maimuna Torre. And our October Student of the Month, Nick Leibold. Appreciate it. And Nick did shower after that. He's good to go.
Hopefully.
It's gonna be-
Gotta
Gotta get the candy cane back.
It's Christmas.
Okay. Good news. Thank you. Congratulations.
Good job, kids.
Where?
All right, and so we have three for recognition of citizens for input purposes. So we will start with Jason.
So you answered some of my questions with the chair, but I'm wondering, it doesn't make no sense to me why they would allow board members up to $20,000. It just seems like a conflict of interest to me. I mean, I was here when they changed it from, 8,000 to nothing. It just doesn't seem right to me that someone on the board should be able to make $20,000 off of a school that they help run. It just doesn't make sense to me. And if you want to take it a step further, I don't think anybody on the board should have a spouse working at the school either, but it just doesn't make any sense to me as to why, you guys would change it. You said the legislature changed it. It doesn't make no sense to me, and I just thought I'd voice my opinion on it because it just seems like a conflict of interest to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellie.
All right, I have actually two things that I wanted to address, so I'm not certain I can have time on both, but. First, I wanted to clarify some info given at the 11/27 meeting, last month. It was when you had given the dollar amount for the approved 3-year contract for the superintendent. And it was presented as a 3-year contract costing the district year 24-25. $132,314.77. I had emailed business manager to get the total package, salary and benefits. And to me, when you're presenting a number for an increase or a contract, you would present all the district dollars that you're paying out. So when the business manager had replied to me, the actual cost would be $158,478.73. Is that correct? What I'm seeing, what she had emailed?
It could be.
You guys were all CC'd on it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't remember offhand.
So then year 25-26 presented was $136,284.21. And the actual cost would be $162,448.17. And then your year 26-27, it was presented $139,009.89. And the actual cost would be $165,173.85. Which, if I'm understanding it correctly, and I'm not, super great with math all the time, but that would lead to a 9.62% increase for the 3-year contract. Roughly.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember what it said.
Okay, so I think it's fair when negotiations and salaries and, packages are presented to the public and taxpayers. That includes all the district dollars being spent being spent on those positions. I know a lot of times they're given in a percentage, and I always feel it's nice to know the dollars because a 9.62% increase on 100 and, say a triple digit number is a lot different than a 9.6% increase on an $11 an hour income. So that was my first issue. And then my second one was also the policy 210, the school board conflict of interest. And you kind of cleared that up with what the policy states now. And it'll be interesting to see if we have to follow that with legislation. So I'll be waiting to hear on that. And I feel as 6 people being voted in on an entire community and being the community's voice, the taxpayer's voice. I sat in your spot before and you have to make some tough decisions and you don't always make people happy. And I contacted the Department of Education many times on what I was allowed to vote on. And, you cannot vote on anybody that you are financially benefiting from. So I feel making a fiscally responsible decision when you are also an employee of a district is a complete conflict of interest, absolutely complete conflict. That's all, that's the bottom line, what I feel. Because you are in charge of kind of keeping the district, in tow and making sure superintendent is keeping the principal, everyone's kind of flowing. So we're teaching and our kids are getting the best education they can. And if you're sitting back worried about making 20 grand from doing, another job, there's no way you can vote on something that's going to affect that if you are really banking on that money. And I would have to agree with Jason as a community member. I would also like to see that not a spouse of an employee be on the board. I just don't feel you're one vote and you take those votes away and then we're down votes. So that can make a big difference. It's a hard position to be in, and making the best decisions for the majority of the community is what should be your main goal.
All right, thank you, Ellie. Stacy.
I just have the same exact thing with Ellie and Jason. I don't feel a school employee should be on the school board. I feel it's a conflict of interest, and nor do I believe a spouse should be on the school board. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I just feel that, it's district wide. I don't feel there should be a benefit of an employee to be on it or a spouse. That's how I feel.
All right, thank you. All right, we will go into board committee report. I will start with Midstate. We didn't meet. First time for that. Policy committee did not meet yet. And finance.
We have not either.
Okay. All right, superintendent report.
Just letting everyone know that Ryan Hofstad was given a certificate from MSBA for leadership development certificate. So I'd like to play this with you. We're finishing all 4 parts of the training. So
Right on.
yeah, so you can
Awesome.
hang that up. Otherwise, I don't have just a lot going on with lots of different activities. We'll have full house Tuesday and Thursday with both boys and girls here at home. And so it'll be very busy. Fire concert on Monday night. And ball games next week as well. So hopefully people can come out and see what's happening.
All right. For the principals.
And the only showing down tonight.
Yep.
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Ware Camp 3. Very quick things, the choir concert, December 18th, for those that read my parent newsletter, I sent out a correction tonight at 6 o'clock. I had 6 o'clock for the choir concert. Monday, the choir concert is at 7 PM in the cafeteria. We have finished the department meetings for the master schedule for next year and are working now on putting the master calendar together, the master schedule. So we're looking at placing classes. We do this, guidance counselor, myself and a committee of teachers, having multiple eyes on the project and placement of classes. For instance, nobody likes to have we make sure you don't want to have a college algebra class that is a one section class up against your band. Because you're putting kids in a position, there is no way to totally avoid that, but we try to minimize that as much as we can through the master scheduling process. So we are into that. It'll probably take us over the course of the next month to finish that up, and we need to have that ready for registration in February and March. So we are working on that, and then next Thursday we will have Christmas activities, a shortened schedule of classes in the morning. We'll shorten the classes up, and then they're going to do a talent show, and then teachers put on different activities, karaoke contests and cookie decorating and beanbag tournament and some open gym and some Christmas movies. And so we will have those activities. We have 3 days throughout the year that we take some time out and have some fun with the kids, and that is Homecoming Friday with the Olympics right before the holidays, and then we have Survivor Week in the spring. And so everyone looks forward to that, and it's a good time and a way to kind of share some of the holiday spirit with the kids. So that will be next Thursday. Any questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Yep, Katie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I don't understand when you said they might go up like 9% or 12%, you know, your taxes. Mine went up over 100%, my property taxes. Just with the, what I had to pay for the public school, the roads. So they went up over 100%. And I don't know if there can be any explanation. Oh, I did build a shed. In case you wanted.
You did build a shed?
No, I did not.
Oh, you did not build a shed. Yeah,
So if anything, I mean, my buildings should probably be appreciated for 50 to 100 years old. So I don't know if there's any answers or what about that.
I don't know. Is that something that you can?
She wants to bring in her statement, or Scott can look at it right now.
yeah. You think? I can look at this and you guys can.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. All right, next we're moving on to the consent agenda approval. So the board's consenting to approve items listed below as presented at one time. At any point, a director can pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion. So we have approval of regular board meeting minutes from 11/27/23. The claims, accounts, and financial, to approve the payable and receivables, employee reimbursements as attached. Approval of the RESP contract, approval of the resignation, and approval of the new hire. Does anybody have anything that they want to pull from this? Okay. All right, I will take a motion to approve
So moved.
by Director Hackett, second by Director Bowman. And discussion.
I have one quick question on the claims, accounts and financials. This month and last month, I noticed this is still a little bit different of a layout of the information. Is this like a new process we're using because Heidi does things different, or is just a change kind of in flavor for that to be? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump on that. So, the layout is a bit different than what you were accustomed to
Yep.
before. It's still the same thing where you're going to be looking at the previous last 2 years and seeing where we're at year to date. The reason for the change is because we were using a company called Forecast 5. and Heidi wasn't necessarily familiar with that, so then, I created and went with this new program, it's doing the same thing, but we're gonna get rid of that software from the school district, so it's gonna look a little bit different, but it's gonna be less expensive for the district moving forward, so. But the main thing is, like I told all of you, is when you look at that, look at the percentages by year, and if there's something really popping out, that's what I would talk about with you guys about, because that is one of your key indicators as to what's happening, from year to year. And now with the last 3 years having COVID and CARES money running out, it is certainly understandable that, like, our revenues may be lower to this point throughout, FY 24 than they were FY 23, because we had all those expenditures, we had to use up those funds, right? So I mean, as this COVID bubble's kind of going through and gets out of there, then it will start to look more reasonable and like you're used to, but as far as the format goes, that's the reason for the changes, is it's a lot easier for Heidi to use, and it's gonna save the district money too in the long run.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. All right, next is approval of the final levy.
Motion to approve.
Director Bowman,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to second that.
all right, by Director Hackett. Is there any discussion? Further thoughts? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. And freshwater targeted services.
Yep, so just bringing this back for a second look. We went through this more extensively last meeting, a couple weeks ago. Shall we pull that up? We'll run through it briefly. Again, credit, targeted services and credit recovery. These are under the umbrella of alternative learning. They both receive revenue from MDE. Targeted services and intervention preventive program. And this would allow us to offer summer school for our children with a revenue source attached to it. Good point. Who can provide it? Districts with the state approved ALC. We do not have an ALC in our district. Nor are we in a cooperating district. Are we acting as a cooperating district with another district that does have an ALC? We cannot offer targeted services without that. Freshwater Education District does have an ALC and partners with multiple districts across central Minnesota to provide both targeted services and credit recovery at the high school. How does it work? Freshwater oversees the targeted services program. They report our students and using our local MARS information. We retain 10% of the revenue that's generated. And then these hours are over and above the regular school day. It doesn't impact our general education funding, these hours. We provide the curriculum, the staff is hired by them, but they're our staff and they're in our classrooms. Student contact times input in the MARS system and the hours that generate an extended time revenue. Students generate $5.47 per hour teacher-student contact time. So breakfast and lunch supervision time and transportation would not be covered with this revenue. Just an average on what our summer school looked like last year, close to it. And if we were to have it with targeted services revenue, it would generate about $19,692. Freshwater would take $17,000 of that to run all of that process, pay the teachers, etc. Okay, next slide. Expenses run about 12,000 in this scenario. Again, this is just one scenario of this students, that many of hours, etc. Freshwater again pays that 12,000 out of the revenue that they collected from us. And then again, transportation, nursing services and coordinator expenses that we've had in the past during our summer school would not be covered by the extended time revenue. Remember we talked about using ESSER 161. I do believe we're going to have more in ESSER than what I was originally thinking, because I believe we'll be able to use our school support personnel aid for the Northern Pines behavior interventionist. So that means that ESSER money that's being used for that currently could then be put aside to pay for summer school this summer, which we'd have to have in June. But it might not cover it all, but we'd have the target services to cover the rest. And then we just have to make a decision next summer if we want to continue offering transportation, if we want to continue paying for nursing services, where the monies will get generated from. And we can take that as we get closer to the time of offering summer school. So rationale for entering into the partnership. It's going to help us with our READ Act adherence because we're going to have to offer interventions, reading instruction for students as required in statute. It'll give children opportunity to get academic support that are not at grade level, along with social emotional support. All the administrative function management of it is done by Freshwater. Our teachers are still teaching our children, and we get to choose the time of year and days of the week and how the program runs. And so, again, we just have to consider for next summer school, cost of transportation not covered by extended time revenue, cost of nursing services, cost of supervision of breakfast and lunch. And then again, there may be new funding coming for the READ Act, as well as you never know if they'll increase the extended time revenue, which has not been increased for years. And then there could be potential increases in other funding streams. So I brought that to you last week or 2 weeks ago. So looking to enter into this agreement so that we can continue offering summer school in our future with a revenue stream attached to it.
We do have a question. So if we enter into this and then let's say some other funding comes along and or somehow we don't need to use them, are we like contracted to pay anything out if for some reason?
No, if we don't offer the service, it doesn't generate.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if we signed into it and for some reason didn't use them, if there was any issues.
No,
That's close to the question I had. Let's say legislature gets together and does something for summer schools, will this preclude us?
yeah, then we would likely be able to still get target services dollars. And
Okay.
that's what they were doing with ESSER money. Other districts had not. So.
Because either way, we need to have an ALC to go through.
Right, I don't see them removing that part
I
of
wish
it,
they would
so
remove that,
I don't see it.
but they haven't. Mhm.
Okay. So the other question I have is, so at what point would we ever need to have an ALC?
We'd have to be a lot larger. I don't know how we would fund it, because you have to have licensed teachers in each area.
Yep.
You gotta have enough kids to support something like that. You could possibly do an ALP-like program, but ALC is pretty intensive. Usually, that's why you have cooperating districts working together,
Mhm.
especially in small areas. Big schools can have them on their own.
I just have a question back at the, so if you enter into this contract with Freshwater Services, it's just, we are just in there indefinitely, or is it an
I believe it's
annual?
annualized in the
Oh,
contract that we're doing.
Okay. And the one other question I had was when you were saying you could move around some of those ESSER funds, that's to cover the offset of the 15,000 this summer?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna be able to use I'm gonna find some additional ESSER $161 by that school support personnel aid impacting. And then that money we can use to pay for summer school. We'll still collect that revenue from extended time and put that into the savings account for the next year. Cause you can only use it for extended time purposes.
Okay,
You can only use it for that. So those dollars are going to a restricted fund.
so we would be using Freshwater as our covering by this summer school or next?
This
summer
summer school.
This one, okay.
This one for sure.
All right, I'll take a motion to approve freshwater targeted services.
Mr. Chairman,
Director Bellman,
I'd like to second it.
Director Hackett. Is there any other discussion? It's a lot of great questions. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. All right, approval of donations by resolution. All right. So I get somebody to introduce the acceptance of gifts resolution.
So
Director Trode. Thank you. Director Trode introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. Russ and Carla Garretts have generously donated $300 to the Royalton Boys Basketball Program. And the Region 5 Development Commission has generously donated a $5,000 grant to put forth a student-led project that enhances the learning from Acre Day participation and or related to the agricultural industry in Region 5. Royalton will facilitate the implementation of hydroponic lettuce production, which will benefit 4 different classes: Greenhouse 1 and 2, Band 7 in 7th grade, and Intro to Ag, which is in 9th grade. And therefore be it resolved by the school board to gratefully accept these gifts. The motion for adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly seconded by Director Bowman. And a roll call vote was taken.
Director Bauman.
Aye.
Director Hofstad.
Aye.
Director Hackett.
Aye.
Director Boyd.
Aye.
Director Rory. Aye. Director Truck.
Aye.
All right. And 0 voted against and 0 abstained. So the foregoing resolution was approved this 11th day of December 2022. All right. Next one is fundraising report.
Chairman Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Werekamp. I am substituting for 2 people tonight on the fundraising report. A number of years ago, we had some fundraising that occurred in the district with businesses, outside businesses, out of state businesses, contacting community vendors, community businesses, asking for them to sponsor in the name of the school. And at the time, the board thought it would be a good idea because they didn't know what was legit and what was not legit. And so at that time, the board developed a policy to, at the very least, be informed of what the school approved fundraisers were for each year, and multiple times a year, then coming to the board and notifying them of those fundraisers and getting approval for the ones that are new. And I am stepping on Amy's toes with this one, so I'm going to stand aside so she can talk about the preschool fundraiser.
We can talk about it. So the preschool staff did a pepper chip sale. And they basically did it one time. They're thinking they possibly would like to repeat it. The profit that overall they had was $381.75. And they received 30% of the sales that they did. And then one other one that the preschool staff did was a paper pie card box sale. They received $13 per box profit. They sold over 100 boxes. So their profit was $1,352. And they would like to do that one, and they're planning to do that.
The elementary technology fundraiser is a Club's Choice food item order. They help fundraise for the elementary technology account. They sell between September and October, or first part of October. Delivery date was just a few weeks ago. The profit for that fundraiser, which covers iPads, Chromebooks, computer labs, any type of technology things that are happening at the elementary school, with a profit of $10,416.24. The athletics, probably the spot where you're going to see the most fundraising is through those student activities. And so you can take a look at these. The boys basketball does the discount cards. I believe that is actually happening or just finished this week or on Friday. So we don't yet have the final total of what that is, but they raise that for the boys basketball program. If they have, like I said, shooting shirts or Scott's shooting machine, those types of things that the school district wouldn't provide a program, but they might want to use. A baseball team might get a pitching machine with their fundraising dollars. Those are the types of things that these things go to. So cross country and track does the Platte River 5K road race on Platte River Day. And they use those for snacks, end of the year banquets, other supplies for the athletes during the year, water. They do some things, some other things for like the meets, and they profited $700 from the road race. FFA fruit sales, I just got my thing of summer sausage tonight, was delivered to me. It's probably one of the most successful fundraisers that we have in the district. It's a very popular one. They profit $10,000 off of that, and it's so that the FFA teams can attend regional. We're part of a region. We have like 22 CDE events that our students take part in, from dairy showing to forestry, and all different kinds of competitions. And then we have some state and national events that our students participate in. And they profit $10,000 from that fruit sales fundraiser. Prom does a burger stand. They do the tailgate party at the homecoming football game. Helps with some of the prom decorations and things that they have, and they have a profit of $400 on that. Those are the ones that our effort is going to be to make sure twice a year that we come to you with these fundraisers, so we know where we're at, where the board is at. If you receive questions like, oh, I got this call from somebody in Texas about a fundraiser and that has happened, that you can have a more informed answer to concerned citizens.
Makes sense.
Any questions?
I just have one quick question, just for lack of knowledge. The preschool fundraisers, were they just internal or were they external to the community as well? I just never heard of them.
I think they
all the
just
rest of them
did
seem
them with
very
their
familiar.
staff.
They just did them with
They
it.
did them within the preschool. They didn't go like huge on them.
Okay.
Thank you. And thanks for filling in. All right, strategic plan update.
So we had our strategic planning meeting, and Nicole, have you come up? We received feedback from the board that the document could use a refresh of a look. And so Nicole put together, an option, and we brought it to the committee, and the committee liked it, so I'm bringing it to the board for feedback from the board, if you want to walk us through it.
Yep. So after presenting to the strategic planning committee and taking their feedback into consideration at their meeting here a couple weeks ago, this is now what it has come to be. It is more visually aligned with finding a way around. So these now in the PDF link into the specific priorities, which are drop downs then within, so that you can see the action plans from last year into this year, which I have completed putting everything in from the spreadsheet that we initially had started with, to make that so you didn't have to follow your eye all the way over with all the small script in there. So if you want to, Michelle, click on one of them, it will jump. Yep. It will jump directly to priority 2, if that's what you're interested in, and you can drop down any of those. And it will give you what month and when, what school year, what happened, and just a brief overview of what came to be. So any of those things that you are wanting to track or find out, or you have a special interest in, you can see what actions have been implemented. Right now, this is just a mock-up kind of hidden in the background on the website. It is not, or it's hidden, so nobody can see it. So once approved, I can say show, and it will launch out live if approved. And that PDF will be accessible on the home page, because there is a new link to that will be on a home page. It'll say strategic plan, which will launch into that PDF and then to these, or you can go straight to these.
Are we gonna stick with just the actions implemented on what we've put up here? Or are we gonna look at some of the things that we're looking to work on or working on that we haven't gotten implemented yet?
There are a few things actually under, you can scroll down. I think they're under 3 and 4, like there's the electric sign has been on there. I know we're working our communications plan, so in those cases where there haven't been any action plans, I just put in there coming school year 23-24. But if we need to push things off, we can maybe put in, okay, future,
Mhm.
and update those.
Okay.
So as that spreadsheet gets to be updated, then I can go to that spreadsheet, see what the principals and Dr. Weirkamp Herman have put in there and keep updating this so that those action plans and everything stay transparent to the public.
How often do we plan on updating this?
We were doing about every 6 weeks. Principals would go in and refresh. What new stuff that would come. Or
Is
making sure.
that gonna be too much to do to update this? Keep going back and forth,
It's not, because then I just go into that spreadsheet, copy, paste, copy, paste.
I think this is so much better and so much easier to read and see what's actually going on.
Yeah, much more user friendly, and it's just intuitive. So,
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's limits the amount of information you're seeing, so, you know, if that's what you're looking for, you don't see all the other things that you're not looking for, so.
And we did add at the top what a strategic plan is. Some people aren't familiar with what a strategic plan is. We just put a little bit of a tip on there about it, specific to Royalton's anyway.
Mhm.
I think that looks great.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have any questions for Nicole?
Or any changes or.
No, I think that looks, Marie and I were at the meeting, so there were a couple tweaks on this front page. I think it looks really good. Thanks, Nick. So.
All right,
That's great. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, spring break survey discussion. So, yep, go ahead.
So I know a while back, and it might have even been before the two new members were here, we had talked about at one point, if the community, if the students, if the staff, if they'd rather have a spring break instead of the longer weekends. And so I know at one point we had discussed sending out a survey to see where everybody kind of stood. I didn't want to ignore that or not loop back around to that, but I thought we should do it if we decide to do it before the administration puts together the calendar for next year, because I hate for them to do work and then we decide to do the survey and then everybody wants it and then they have to re-juggle things. So I was just throwing it back out there, just kind of looping back around to it, because I know we had discussed it at one point.
How would that look? It's just kind of taking some long weekends away, 'cause I know some districts that have the spring break going to June then.
Yeah.
You
You
know
can
what I
do
mean?
it, yeah, you can take that weekend away, or you could keep the weekend and go into June, yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can do that.
I think we'd have to come up with basically two different ways is really, we're not gonna make a third way, I don't think. It's either without the weekends, and spring break, or with the weekends and spring break, and what those two calendars.
Or no.
would be. Or no spring break.
Yeah.
Yep.
With
And
the
maybe we don't want-
spring break, a week. I think this was before our time.
It was.
I think because I think it was 2 years ago, because I think we wanted to have a year of the long weekends to kind of give people, so that, like, they could see what that looked like, and then we were like, oh, we'll bring it back the next year. And maybe we don't want to, I don't know, I just didn't want to leave it hanging out there without having another discussion, either closing it out or deciding what we wanted to do.
Was that a school board discussion, or did members from the community bring that forth, or how did that work?
It came from, I think there was 3 that talked about it, if I remember right, that had asked about, hey, why don't we have a spring break type of thing? And, at that time, we had just started talking about the schedule for the next year. And, so we talked about, hey, well, maybe we should do a survey and see what that looks like for the community, so. it wasn't an overwhelming thing, but I mean, 3 comments is probably enough of representation of, we should probably talk about.
Yeah,
it.
oh, I agree.
And the long weekends has been our standard practice?
No,
That was.
no, it's gone back and forth, I think, hasn't it, Joel? I know my first year here, there weren't any breaks. We got done early, a lot of absences. So we added in some of those, longer weekends that second year, far fewer absences. But I don't know that you've ever had a spring break.
Not since my kids have been going here.
Yeah.
25 years, we haven't had a spring break. Yeah, just Easter.
When it's early.
Back in 94, we had like 3 days where so much snow that we couldn't get here. That was close. That was close.
I mean, do we wanna draw something up so you can see what it looks like? I mean, where are these long weekends at? Which long weekends are we talking? Do we have a copy of the
Well, it's,
the calendar or not?
Calendar off the website.
Yeah, it would have been.
You can look at the current calendar. so.
Built around a couple holidays and like deer hunting, isn't it?
And conferences.
Cause I think weren't they more like sporadic, like towards the end where we didn't?
Then, so you can see there. So if we're in December now, you can see they have the 22nd through the 1st off. And then, there's that 4-day weekend in February. And then you have a couple of days in March. That one in March ends up going into April, you can see from the 29th. And then you have May. Which that actually is Memorial Day.
Mhm.
And that March 8th and the 11th, well, that's a 4-day weekend, because that's a comp day for conferences. So if you did a spring break, you would probably eliminate a couple of those 4-day weekends and put in a full week somewhere,
plus you probably add on the end of the year.
Well, if
depending
you
on how many.
Took 5 of the days off and put them basically in one spot.
Is there a trend in absences, like a certain time of year? Like all the kids gone in Easter week or all the
More
kids gone?
staff.
Oh,
It's
staff.
it's more of a struggle with staff and those, when we get in past December, when we get into that, that's what we experienced my first year. Some of that's COVID too. But you can just kind of see they get tired.
So which 5 days would we wanna pick? I mean, Memorial Day, do we wanna cut that out of there, or would you put spring break around? Well, you wouldn't, because that's the end of the year.
Yeah, you usually do it in
Spring break.
March.
Right.
Usually districts do it in March or early April.
So
And some will do it around like a Easter break time.
You'd almost have to take that February.
that one's President's Day, right? Around there. or not?
Yes.
But you'd have to find 5 days somewhere in there, right?
Yep.
So if you took the one up January 1st and then you took February. 2 in March, that's still only 4, and then 1 in April. That'd be 5, right? Then Memorial Day, you'd still
One of
have.
those though,
The end of March.
is a PD day, which is, one of them are the
Oh, yeah.
PD days.
You don't want to take Easter break away either.
The purple one.
The purple,
You
yeah.
are looking at extending.
Right. I can tell you which way my vote's gonna go as a parent. If we're extending, it's gonna be no, because I don't want to extend in June. That's just my vote as a parent, obviously, but. I think the kids like that too, to be off early, when they're off before some of the other districts, and I think teachers also like that to be off. Starting June, but. If we had community members that were asking about it, I think it'd be a good idea to put it out there
Do a survey.
and just say, hey, this is where we're at, what do you guys think? But then we have to tell them, these are the days that we're gonna be losing, you know?
So is there,
Keep Easter break, where we're gonna gain those other 2 days. It's gonna be tough.
Can't think of ideas that are contracts for vacation days, so.
Yeah, like the holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah, holiday.
So,
And maybe the majority doesn't and they want to leave it. I don't know. I just know it's brought forward and they didn't want to.
But I think we do our due diligence and put a survey out there, say, hey, it's been brought forth, and this is where we're at. What do you guys wanna do? We see what they're thinking, right?
Yep.
I don't know. How hard is it to do these surveys?
Well, the survey is easy. I would be more worried about how long would it take to make up if we do nothing, if we do a week-long something, and if we do a week-long something and keep the current holidays, how long would that take to create?
Oh, that one.
So.
I think it's more of how you frame the question so that they understand it and get the answer, So that's always the hardest part of surveying is designing your questions to
So
get
could
at.
we, is that something we could present at the next board meeting? Like, here are the three options, and we could just take a look at them?
With some
and,
options of questions, survey questions.
Yep. With the three different schedules that would be there, and then. 'Cause I'd rather do a survey after the holidays.
How soon do we need to have it done? In order for it to reflect on next year's calendar?
Yeah, we would want to get it done right away in January, right
Right,
away. So we mean January 8th.
Yep.
Decide that night, I could send it like that week. Cause you'd want to get a quick turnaround.
then we would still have to approve it, right?
Yeah, cause that's why I gotta get, and we have our calendar committee that would have
So
to,
we'd
weigh in.
approve it in February?
maybe March.
It just would be approved, I think, with when we approve the calendar, right? Yeah, it wouldn't be a separate.
Because we have to analyze it too around the READ Act and all the PD that's required there, so we'll be coming back with options on that too. With the calendar, and we're designing that this Friday, 3 different options to bring back to the board, because that's a big deal. It's a lot of time. And we're required to do it in statute, so.
As far as student days, do we have any extra worked in that you could use, so you wouldn't have to extend or not? How many extra? I don't remember.
There's 3 right now, this year is 3, right? Tom? The next, or that next year that we were looking at. Next year, I think was like 3. I get a little nervous.
Right,
Okay.
and that's if you don't use them for snow days, then, or whatever, then, you take those away, yeah, I don't know.
Living on the edge, man.
Just the way I like it.
But I can do that, I can come back with some options. Because we're gonna have to include that READ Act information anyway, so might as well just do it all. at once.
That would be great.
Okay,
I have a note too for the agenda. All right, upcoming meeting schedule, so. Policy. Or is everybody okay not going in December here, and we'll pick it back up in January?
Do I?
Skip December. Take off December from policy and start again after our organizational meeting in January. Okay. Any issue? Okay. So we'll come up with a new date at the January 8th meeting.
All right.
So the finance meeting, so Heidi's on vacation that week.
Yeah.
So do you guys want to change that to after?
well, we could do the 14th or the 15th, which will be this week.
Will she be ready?
But. Yeah, she thought she could be ready by then, or we could, unless you wanted to push it into the first week of January, I don't know. Cause after that's break.
Chairman Hofstad.
Yep.
When you have a minute and it's appropriate, I'd just like to address the board one last time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I guess what dates did you tell us out? So she had thought maybe the 14th or the 15th of this week, like Thursday or Friday of this week.
Oh, this week?
Yeah, or would we care if we went into the first week of January, like the 2nd or 3rd of January?
Are we looking at noon still?
Yeah,
And pretty open with the new
I would pick
times,
this
so.
week if we could, but I can make it work.
you could do this week?
I can make this week work, yeah.
Okay.
Either day, actually, at noon.
Maria, what do you got?
I think I can make it work. So could we do? So which day would you like, Thursday or Friday? I think I prefer Thursday, agree. So December 14th. At noon.
Awesome. All right, thank you. So Monday, January 6 PM is our organizational meeting and we'll walk right into our regular board meeting after that. Anything else from the board? All right, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you for just allowing me one more minute, because I want to address some of the questions that were brought up during the tax and levy, the TNT presentation. So one, the 2015 A bonds, those are going to be paid up 2036. And then the 2016, those are up in 2032. And then the question was also posed, talking about our increase, you asked about the increase in payment. So looking at whenever you do the bonds, they come up with the schedule, and the schedule does have a large increase going into 2024 from total principal and interest from 1.6 to 2.02. And then it flattens out and then it starts to decline. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that. And also too, I did talk with Katie in the crowd here, looked at her statement as well for her. Does look like the property taxes on her property went up quite a bit. I think it was, if you don't mind sharing, it was up $70,000 on the census, correct? It went up quite a bit, but I did also copy her on an email to our financial advisors with Ayers, just to chime in to see if I had missed anything, to make sure that the community is being taken care of. So any other questions on that? Okay. And the last thing I'll say, it's been a very big pleasure working with all of you. I appreciate your guys' time and understanding, and I know you guys are in great hands with Heidi. She's fantastic. So but I'm a phone call or a text away from Heidi, so I'm always wanting to keep Royalton near and dear to my heart. So thank you, everyone, for your time and your commitment to Royalton School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
So I take a motion to adjourn. By Director Bowman,
I'll second that.
second by Director Hackett. All right. Motion by Director Bowman and a second by Director Hackett to adjourn the meeting at 7:30 PM. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Meeting